car salesman is not your friend. He is your adversary. He may approach you with a smile on his face and a handshake that leaves your hands smelling like bad cologne for the next couple of hours, but his job is to take as much money out of your pocket as possible while making you feel good about it. The moment you step foot on the lot, he is sizing you up. In many cases, when you walk into a showroom, a swarm of salesmen approach you like street whores wanting to separate you from your hard-earned money. They will offer you a coffee, a Coke, and maybe even a donut. They'll sit you down in a comfortable chair, and that's when the real games begin. They'll be nice until they got what they want, and then like a bad one-night stand, they'll want nothing to do with you. They will tell you things like, if we sell it that cheap, we'll lose money. If I sell it to you for that, my boss will get mad. During the negotiation, he'll make 2 or 3 trips to the back room to talk to the finance or sales manager. And in many cases, the sales manager will come out, and now you're getting double-teamed. The sales manager normally isn't as friendly as the salesman, and he's got a bad attitude. He'll have a condescending attitude like, is that all you're willing to pay? You're not serious. Yeah, I'd like the car for that too, but that's not going to happen. Now, if you are a seasoned negotiator, you'll make your offer and you'll stick to it. You won't be scared to walk away. If you want, you can leave your phone number, but I recommend leaving an email unless you want annoying phone calls for the next month. So let's say you and the salesman reached an agreement and you made a purchase. Like a shameful one-night stand, he'll hope to never see you again, especially if he took you for every penny he could. And if you finance the car, for the next 5 or 6 years, you're going to know you got fucked.
I'm sorry about what you had to witness before this video. Hello everybody, Photojunky here from Photojunky's Drone Zone. What a better place to tell you about my MDX oil consumption nightmare than inside my MDX. So, I bought this car in 2017. It had, I think, about 72,000 miles on it, which isn't very much for a Acura. The car can do, or Acuras in general, can do 200,000 trouble-free miles, no problem. This one drove great. Everything felt fine, and within a couple of months, I noticed that my oil light came on. So I checked my oil, and there was no oil on the dipstick. I added an entire quart, and still there was no oil on the dipstick. And I guess I was lucky the motor didn't break, didn't blow up. So I filled it, to where it was supposed to be. I thought maybe it was me, something I had overlooked when I had filled it up originally. So kept on driving and kept on checking the oil, and it kept on needing oil. And it got to the point where, it was towards the end, I was putting in 1.23 quarts every 1,000 miles. Actually, every 900 miles, which is completely insane. So prior to that, I was checking the oil all the time, and the valve started making this terrible sound, like it was dieseling. Going up a hill you'd hear, bad valves. So I had actually bought an aftermarket warranty from Warranty Solutions, and the drivetrain and the electrical was covered. So I thought, okay, no problem. So I called them up, and they said, okay, have your shop break down the engine and tell us the clearance on the valves. I think it was for the valve noise. And at that point, they weren't really interested in the oil consumption. They just wanted to fix the valves. And I kept on telling them about the oil consumption, and it was as if I wasn't telling them at all. They kept on ignoring it. So we had the shop break it down. The shop broke it down. And then they asked me, well, we need exact proof of how much oil your vehicle is consuming. So I told them, well, it's consuming about a quart every 800 miles at this point. And they said, well, we need you to prove that. We need that in writing. So the shop was going back and forth with these people, and it was a total nightmare. So the shop was telling them, well, before we broke down the engine, we needed to do that oil consumption test. And you told the client to break down the engine. So the engine's in parts. So to make a long story short, after I think it was about 2.5 months and almost 30 phone calls back and forth, and let me tell you, these people, it was a nightmare. Warranty Solutions, scam, total scam. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. They basically held my car hostage. So it got to the point where I told the shop just fix the car. I don't care. I'm going to pay out of pocket. I can't do any more, right? And I would call up. They would put me on hold for 20 minutes. Then I would talk to some person who would want to argue with me. And, I was basically, I was being very polite. They had something I needed, which was them to authorize the repair. So I'm not going to, bite the hand that feeds me. I'm being very polite. And they were just giving me the runaround like crazy. They even sent an adjuster out to check out the car. And even the adjuster said that the engine probably would need to be replaced. So, make a long story short, I put the car back together. I told them it was fixed. They mailed me a check for $3,800 finally. So, after a couple months of torture, it was done. But when I got it back, I noticed that it was still consuming huge amounts of oil. So I brought it to Acura, and Acura did a oil consumption test. And what you do is you drive 1,000 miles, and after the 1,000 miles, they basically see how much oil your car consumed. If it consumes more than 1 quart, they'll fix it. They'll replace the rings and pistons if they have to. So the first time I brought it in, they filled it up. I drove my 1,000 miles. I brought it back, and I noticed prior to this. Let me back up. I brought it in. They overfilled it. So when you would look on the dipstick, it was way over the top mark. So I thought that was a little odd, but I figured, dumb me, I figured they did it by oil consumption. So if they put in 5 quarts, they would drain 5 quarts, or they would measure how many quarts came out. So they put in 5, 4 come out, it consumed 1 quart. So when I brought it back, they just looked at the dipstick and they said that it was fine. They said, well, it consumed almost 1 quart, but it didn't meet their qualification to have a rebuild. So I pointed out that it was on unlevel ground. I pointed out that they had overfilled it, and I also pointed out that they brought a jug of oil, and there was no way that I could verify it was actually 1 quart. So on the receipt, they also said, and this was kind of weird, they said added almost 1 quart. Now, he didn't tell me that. He said added 1 quart. So I figured, okay, I'm going to do my own oil consumption test one more time, and I'm going to see. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was me. But I wasn't, I thought they were definitely scamming me. So I do it, and it's burning, almost 2 quarts at this point for 1,000 miles, which is insane. So I talked to the service manager, and he says, okay, I tell the guy, I work on cars. I'm not a fool. I'm not an idiot. You guys are trying to get over. So he says, okay, we're going to fill it up again to the top line, which I verified, and drive 1,000 miles, bring it back. So after 400 miles, I brought it back and showed him, and he said, okay, it looks like it is consuming, but do the 1,000-mile test. So I brought it back after 1,000 miles. There was no oil on the dipstick. They added 1 quart. It barely brought it to a 3rd mark. So basically, I had a free engine, coming, which means new pistons, new rings. So that's great. So make a long story short, they finally did it for me. But it was really a major pain in the ass. And during that time that they were doing it, I actually got a letter stating that there had been a service. They didn't call it a recall. They called it a service notification, I believe. And it was for this specific engine. And it was known to burn a lot of oil. So I got my car back. I got my my new top end of the engine. I'm happy. I'm currently doing another 1,000-mile oil consumption test just to make sure that that it's still not consuming oil, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Anyway, I know there's a bunch of you out there who are having the same problem. Don't let them fool you. You check your own. Oil consumption. Do your own test first. They will try to get over. I was lucky at the very end. I had 2 people that were on my side, so I did get the work done. Anyway, hope this was helpful, and thank you very much.